All right, cool. Well, welcome to Brand New Ship. This is a podcast where we like to connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. And without further ado, I would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Mitch Leff. I am the founder, president of Leff Associates Public Relations. We are based in Atlanta, but we work with clients in Georgia and across the Southeast, and do a lot of work locally, regionally, and nationally.
Okay. Well, so if you want to kind of tell us a story, kind of what made you go down that route?
Sure. So I started in PR right out of college, working for big PR agencies. Worked for Conan Wolf and Edelman and GCI Group, and then got recruited over to Turner Broadcasting in 1999 and ran PR for their education division for a couple of years. It's a division called Turner Learning that Ted Turner had started when he founded CNN years before, and it was kind of a nonprofit, non-revenue generating division where they basically the staff wrote educational programs around different kinds of CNN Turner programming. So they literally had teachers in the house who would say, okay, here's a current event that's going on, and we would they would write a show about it.
Hmm.
And they had a show called CNN. Eventually became called CNN Student News. And then we also worked with Turner Classic Movies and TNT, Turner South, Atlanta Thrashers hockey team, Cartoon Network, CNN. So it was cool.
Super
Um,
interesting.
but so I was there for a couple of years, and then it was kind of right after the AOL Time Warner merger, and the accounting department said, "Hey, wait a minute, these guys are a non-revenue generating nonprofit division. Why are they still here?" So they fixed that problem.
Right.
So they kind of laid off a good portion of the team, and yeah, it was like in 2002, and I spent a couple of months trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life
Hmm.
next. And at the time, I had two kids under the age of two, and my wife had recently decided to stay home with the kids, so we had two little kids, and neither of us had jobs. So that was a fun
That's a
time,
large
right?
task. Yeah.
So yeah, so I did freelance work and contract work for a couple of months, and then decided to, this was a crazy time to hang out my own shingle and try and work for myself, which
Absolutely.
in retrospect seems like a really bad idea. But it's kind of you got to get to the what drives people to start their own companies, and for me, it was getting laid off that drove me to start my own company because
Absolutely.
I couldn't find a I couldn't find the job that paid what I wanted and really would allow me the lifestyle that I wanted. I didn't want to be traveling all the time. I didn't want to be working nights and weekends all the time with young kids. Uh, so for some crazy reason, I decided starting my own company would be less stressful. Um,
Wow.
so January 2003, I kind of rolled out Leff Associates and started going through my big old huge pile of business cards and emails of anyone I'd ever worked with in the last 20 years before that, and started asking people for, hey, you need help, you need PR help, you want to contract and outsource some stuff. And I remember going over to had a meeting set up with some of my people I knew at Bell South. And the morning of the meeting, I opened up the newspaper, and the big, huge front page of the headline was Bell South to lay off 7,000 workers. And I thought maybe I should just cancel this meeting. And I decided not to. I went in, did the meeting, and I told the guys, I said, I was gonna cancel this meeting because I figured when you're laying off 7,000 people, you really couldn't hire outsourced PR. And they said, oh no, 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 we need you more than ever because we're losing people in our department. So it's that old crazy kind of they lose headcount internally, but they can still hire contractors, right?
Absolutely. Right place at the right time.
Yeah, yeah. So I did a little bit of work for them, and then started growing my client base. And I probably spent the first year kind of working for other PR agencies, kind of subcontracting for them, and kind of helping them, working for them as kind of the other agencies as a client, as I built my own client base. And within probably 2 years, I'd kind of shifted from working for other people to hiring other people to work for me.
Absolutely.
And I decided to make it more of a I guess you would call it a virtual company model. So I don't have a whole lot of full-time staff, but
Uh-huh.
I contract with a lot of other PR professionals.
Okay.
So I've got a network of 20 or 30 other people. And based on the client or the project, I'll bring in the right people. If I need a writer or a graphic designer or a photographer or someone who can pitch national media or local media, you just kind of figure out who you want. If I need a speechwriter, I know some people who write speeches. If I need a social media person, I can find someone who does social media.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
kind of built it that way. And our premise is really focused on a couple of things. It's public relations, which is kind of the broad umbrella of under marketing, but it's media relations, it's crisis communications, and media training.
Okay.
So we do a lot of work with our clients and with other kind of one-off projects. They'll call us in and we'll train them on how to work with media.
Okay.
So it's how to do interviews, how to get your messages across, how to feel comfortable sitting in front of a camera telling your
It's not
story.
easy.
It's not easy, and it's funny because every once in a while a reporter will ask me to be the interview subject, and I have to put myself through my own training and kind of okay, here's what I'm supposed to do when I do an interview. But we'll do anywhere from, I mean, I've done groups as small as one person and bigger groups up to 50 or 75.
So now,
It
and
kind
as
of
you're saying
depends.
that, kind of what is your bread and butter in kind of like what's your niche inside of in all of this? Your
So
favorite, yeah, your favorite
I
part of
think,
it.
yeah. I mean, I think our specialty is working with the media.
Okay.
So we are really good at finding that connection between what a client wants to say and what a reporter wants to report on,
Okay.
which is not always the same thing. The clients will come to us with an event or a service they offer or an issue they want us to raise awareness about, and we have to figure out how do we weave that into kind of what a TV or radio or newspaper reporter is doing on a given day. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go with it. Sometimes you'll like this week we're pitching. Uh, we just work for the business school at Emory, and they've got a lot of experts who can talk about holiday shopping, holiday economics, all Black Friday issues, Cyber Monday, all of those kinds of things. And this time of year, you get a lot of reporters who want to talk about that kind of thing. So we're making that connection between what the client can talk about and what the reporter needs.
Wow.
And it's a fast moving thing. I mean, last Friday, I got a call at 4:30 in the afternoon from a TV producer who was doing a live interview at 5:30 and needed someone to talk about. Um, let's see, it was about the hip hop lyrics being included in a trial.
Hmm.
So she's like, I need somebody to talk about First Amendment rights of the defendant. Should the prosecutors be allowed to bring these rap lyrics into the trial or not? And so we were able to set it up and get someone for her to talk to within about 45 minutes, which is one of the
Yeah.
faster turnarounds.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
sometimes,
awesome.
yeah. Sometimes we'll have, a couple of hours. Sometimes we'll have,
Yeah, and so you're in. So
half
you
an
got your
hour.
hands in and all the media parts of all facets of media. I take it.
Yeah. We do a lot of TV. We do radio. We do online media. We do newspapers, magazines, and they all have their different idiosyncrasies in terms of how fast you have to respond, what their deadlines are. I mean, TV is usually, I need this in the next 2 hours.
Okay.
Magazines might be, I need this in the next 3 days or the next week. And the newspapers are usually, I need this today or tomorrow,
Oh,
depending on
that's awesome.
whether they're doing it online or for print edition.
That is awesome. So, with all that being said, so what kind of I guess what were you really good at when you first started? Because I know a lot of people can, you went and jumped off your ledge in 2003 to go off on
Yep.
your own and do your thing. So, what kind of, I know you got laid off or you quit a job
Got
that
laid off.
definitely
Think quit, got laid off.
definitely pushes you to
Yeah.
want to go do something. But
Yeah.
what were you really
It,
good at?
yeah, it's funny. when my first agency job when I was out of college, you get exposed to a lot of different things. There are people who were pitching, there are people who are writing, there are people who are doing newsletters and publications. There's all different kinds of people at a big agency like that.
Absolutely.
And I I was really interested in the media side of it because I just thought that was kind of cool. The idea of being able to get your client in the newspaper about talking about a story that they're involved with.
For sure.
And I was 22 years old or something like that, and
I can relate.
I remember walking into the office of one of my colleagues down the hall, and I said, "I need, can you teach me how to do this a little bit?" And he wasn't quite sure how to teach me how to do it. He was like former wire service guy, newspaper reporter. He knew how to do it, but he's like, "I'm not sure how to teach you how to do it. You just kind of have to do it."
He just had
So I
it.
said, "Well, let me just sit here in your office and watch how you do it." It's like, "You're just gonna sit there?" I said, "I'm just gonna sit. I'm gonna work on something else. I'm gonna sit here and listen, and while you make phone calls or whatever." So I was like, okay. So he starts working, and he would just pick up the phone and call a reporter and say, "Hey, Tony, it's Jerry. I got this story. Would you write about?" "Okay, good. I'll set up the interview." And I'd be like, "Well, that's not fair. I mean, you know all these guys. They're listening to you because they know you." He says, "Well, yeah, that's how you're successful doing this because they know you and they trust you." And I realized that it's it's not about just pitching the story. It's about building relationships with the reporters that last for a long time. So and actually, when we call our media training, it's building media relationships.
Okay.
So it's not just I'm going to get you on TV today. It's I'm going to build a relationship for you with this reporter, so that over time, they call you whenever they have a story on this topic,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a respectful give and take, and we're not trying to push a story on a reporter that doesn't fit with their media outlet or doesn't fit with what they need to cover on a given day.
Okay.
And and any given day, you could pitch a story and it could be a fantastic story, but there could be something else happening on that day where the reporter's like, "I just can't do this today."
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's a big giant apartment fire,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all covering that, or there's a big court case downtown, and they're all covering that. So yeah, you have to watch the news and figure out how do I bring the reporter who's here and the story that's here together, and sometimes you can figure out how to make that connection, and sometimes you just can't, and you just have to say, I'm gonna wait another day to pitch this.
I got you.
But it's interesting because I found that a lot of PR people like doing media, but a lot of them it's not their first choice. They prefer writing or strategic planning or special events. But I like the media side of it.
Got you.
So I kind of built my niche, as you said, in that space. And a couple years ago, okay, maybe 15 years ago, I built out this website, which was it's called Leff Atlanta Media,
Okay.
and it's a database of all the journalists that are in Metro Atlanta, and we sell it as a subscription service to other marketing people and PR agencies and other PR people, because that's one of the things that really takes a long time is trying to figure out who do you reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from a client the other day who's out of town, and she's like, I got to do this event in Atlanta. I have no idea where to start. And I started telling her about the database, and she's like, "This is great, but maybe I should just hire you to do it." Because she knows I've got the relationships, I know the people, and she says, "I'll get your database for next time, but I want you to do the projects because she's out of town, she doesn't know Atlanta media." So it's like that in any city. You have
Absolutely.
to get to know the reporters. I mean, we do a lot of work all over Georgia and the Southeast, and we're successful because we work a lot with these reporters. It's not just one client; it's multiple clients over
And you
years,
build that
and
relationship that keeps them
you build that
referring
relationship.
you.
And what's funny is, I mean, there's a lot of turnover in media. I mean, we're updating that database all the time. I
Because
mean, every day there's somebody who's left town, someone who's come to town. I I mean, especially TV is like every 2 years there's churn
Hmm.
because that's the way the contracts work. You know, and they're young and they're moving up. So we're always trying to keep track of that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in the consumer space of media, I feel like I see that, but I don't see it as much because when I pay attention to like the news or something, I'll see the same person on there for 2 years, as you say, and then they'll be gone.
Well, yeah, and usually unless they've been there for 30 or 40 years, they don't do a big huge party when they leave.
Yeah,
The ones that are only there for a year or two, they're like, hey, what happened to Mike? Mike's gone.
yeah. Well, Mike's
You know,
working
and,
for the local news station now.
right. Well, and sometimes it's, Mike's moved to another city. People move, sometimes people want to move back where their families are,
I got you.
which is good, or be closer to their family. Or sometimes they decide that, the TV lifestyle is not for them because it is pretty hard running.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, so and I'm kind of listening. I always have the radio on or the TV on, and I'll hear a voice that I don't recognize. I'm like, oh, who's that? And I'll scroll backwards and see who that is, and I have a little notepad. I just jot down.
Go
Okay, I'll
track
go
them
check on
down.
that later and see who that person is and see where that came from. And nowadays with social media, you can go back and you can figure out, okay, they just moved here, they came from Milwaukee, here's where they went to school, and you can kind of get a little background to
Right.
get to know them a little bit, which can be interesting.
So, and as we said, so with all being good at something, and there's got to be something that you were doing bad when you first started. I know people could really relate to that. If you could really build that story for them, kind of show them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when I started my agency in '03, one of the things that I had to figure out was the kind of the mechanics of it. Just the how do you run a business, right? And I was, PR people usually track their hours. You bill your clients by, I work 10 hours for you this month, or I work 20 hours for you this month. And if you don't keep track of that, you don't get paid. You don't get paid enough, right? So I was just kind of keeping track of time on like a piece of paper and an Excel spreadsheet. And I would get to the end of the day and I would look at my sheet and it would say, oh, you only worked 3 hours today. I'm like, I've been here since 8 a.m. It's 6 now. What happened to the other, 6 hours that are not being reflected for some reason here?
Yeah.
And I realized that what I was missing was a little bit of the 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes here, when I would get a call from one client and I would stop working on something and go back to that. So I found a good piece of software called QuickBooks that I've been using forever that has a time tracker on there. So it actually, I can switch back and forth. And, if I'm working 10 minutes on this, I click and timer goes. And if I switch to something else, I click a different client or a different project and it clicks on that. So now at the end of the day, it's tracking 7, 8 hours and I'm capturing it all, which doesn't seem like much, but at the end of the month when you're sending out your bills, there's a big difference between billing 15 hours a month and billing 50 hours a month,
Absolutely.
right? So that was a huge thing for me. And then and the other thing that was interesting was kind of going after new business.
Okay.
It's a lot of, and that's a challenge that a lot of anybody faces starting their own
I
company.
see it now. I'm in sales, so I see it all the time.
How do you get new clients, right? And for me, it was some cold calling. It was a lot of kind of relationship building, kind of getting people I knew to introduce me to people they knew. But I get a lot of calls, and I was in it. I still do get a lot of calls who are people who are doing what I call kicking the tires. They don't really know what PR is, but they think they need it, right? So early on, I would spend a lot of time, when I started this company, I would spend a lot of time doing proposals for people who really didn't know what they were looking for. And I realized that I was, I wasn't assessing them initially correctly,
Okay.
right? I probably wasn't assessing them at all, right? I would say, oh, client prospect, let me do a proposal, let me meet with them,
Right.
and a lot of them just never went anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, I told the story. I met there was a company out in Marietta. That guy calls me. He's like the VP, and he's like, "I really need PR. We really need PR. I want to talk to you. Come out. when can you come out and talk to me? Can you come out today? I was like, okay, can't come today, but I can come tomorrow. So I went out to Marietta, which for me is like 45-minute drive, and had a good conversation with this guy. And at the end of the conversation, he said, well, what's this going to cost? And I gave him, I said, well, usually it costs, this. We started, do a monthly retainer. It starts at this. And I could see his face go, wow. Uh, I wasn't thinking of it. I said, well, how much, what were you thinking? Oh, I don't know. I was thinking like $500 a month. It's like,
Uh,
I said, yeah, you really can't get a whole lot for $500 a month.
yeah, I'll put you one out
And
out.
yeah, but then what happened next was hilarious because as we're talking, his boss, who's the president of the company, walks into his office to ask the VP something, and he looks at me, he looks at the VP, and the VP says, "Oh, this is Mitch. We're talking to him about helping us with some PR." And the president says, "Oh, I didn't know we were thinking about that." It's like,
No wonder why I didn't want to spend so much money.
alrighty then, you had no idea what it was going to cost. You hadn't even talked to your president about, do we want to do PR? So I was like, okay. I said, thanks for your time. I'll write you a proposal. And I sent a proposal. Never heard a word back. Nothing. Just totally ghosted. Not a thank you, not a hey, we're going in a different direction, not a this is more expensive than we thought. Just nothing. No response ever. And it's like okay. So then what I decided to do was I said I'm going to have a kind of an initial conversation with anybody who calls and 15-minute phone call where I'm going to lay out here's kind of where my budget for you would start. Not that, you know, not that it has to be this way, but just so there's an understanding that $500 a month is not going to cut it.
Started kind of tailoring it to each person you went and pitched.
Yeah, a little bit, but at least to kind of lay a bottom level of, here's where we start.
Okay.
So they understand. Okay, you're going to pay at least $3,000 a month as a retainer, and if you want more, we can do more. But I'm not going to do $500 a month. I'm not going to do $1,000 a month because what I found was, and I did take some clients at like $1,000 a month level early on when I was still building the agency. But what I found was it didn't that kind of budget didn't give me enough time to get the work done that they needed to get done that I wanted to do for them, and that level of budget wasn't enough that they took it seriously.
Okay.
So they didn't pay enough attention to it because it just wasn't that big a line item for them.
Hmm.
And I felt with a couple of the clients that it there wasn't a relationship there, and didn't have enough skin in the game to really want to do it.
Okay.
So I mean, I'll do some projects, not at that level, but I'll do some projects. But most of my work is retainer, so it's X dollars a month ongoing. For a year or 2 years. We have some clients that we worked on for 7, 8, 9 years,
Oh, that's awesome.
because that gives us the time, the bandwidth to do different things for them. Because at any given day, you could say, "Hey, I'm going to put out a press release. I'm going to do an event. I'm going to do this media event." But if something else happens that's really big in the city or in the nation that day, it can blow everything else out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I've had client press events and nobody shows up, and I call the reporters and they say, "Oh, there's a shooting happening at the mall, and we're covering that," or something else, some other major news happens, and they're covering that. So those one-off events get a little challenging like that
Okay.
when you're trying to do media. So, but there's ways around it, and there's ways to kind of entice media to do stories in advance and whatnot. But so we try to, it goes back to the relationship kind of thing. We want to build relationships with clients that last for years, not just for a month or one press release or 2 months.
Absolutely, because people do business with people they know.
Right. And we want to be, at the table. We want to be talking to the CEO or at least the senior vice president. Uh, we want to be in on the decision making process when someone starts talking about, we're developing this new product. Let's talk about the marketing. How do we do the marketing? How do we do the PR around this? so we can start talking with them 6 months ahead of time
Okay.
to plan that out. Um, that works much better than someone coming to us and says, "Hey, we got this new product we want to announce tomorrow,"
Yeah.
and and we haven't done the planning
What
for
do
it.
we know? What do we know about the product?
Right? Why does anyone care about the product? You know, and they would say, "Oh, we want to do a press event on Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock," which is never a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
And
and does like so time slots like that, does that kind of go into play with kind of what you do?
time slots in terms of when you
Like
announce things and
when you
when you do
release,
things.
yeah, when you want to release things
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not as much as it used to be because people are news is a little more 24/7 than it used to be.
on your phone at all
Um,
times.
but the the general best practices. You don't want to introduce you don't want to make a big announcement late in the afternoon or in the evening because there's just not as many reporters who are available to cover it. You want to have a little flexibility on how you do that. Um, and giving the reporters options. So
Okay.
say, okay, if you can't do this time, then we could do this time. So give them the option to flex on that. And we do a lot of weekend work.
Okay.
There's a lot of reporters that work weekends, and they're looking for stories and looking for experts and sources. And I mean, the fact of it is that a lot of companies don't want to work. They don't want to make the time on the weekends. And you know, we tell our clients if you make a little bit of time, you know, it could take 5-10 minutes to do an interview, then you can get a lot of good play on it. I mean,
Abs-
Sunday evening news is a highly watched news show.
Absolutely, yeah. So, Mitch, I got this for you. So, do you know where the term "burn the ship" came from?
I'm sorry, with it. No, I don't.
All right. So, you familiar with the conquistador Hernan Cortez?
Yep.
He landed in
Oh,
He landed in Central America.
he burned his ship, so his men knew that there was no going back.
Exactly. And
Right.
they
That's
were going to
right.
make it work or they're going to die trying. So, kind
Right.
of, what did it feel like for you in 2003 whenever you burned the ship?
Yeah. That first year was first 2 years probably really stressful, and it was interesting because we get to the end of the first year and we had some clients that we had signed on, and I didn't know if some of them were gonna sign on for a year or two or not.
Okay.
Right. So that was the challenging thing, and I learned it at some point along the way. Is like, don't have all your client contracts expire at the same time. It's like if all your contracts expire on December 31st, and that's not a good thing.
And you ain't got no
So
penny, you ain't got no
so
dollars and pennies
we
coming
try to
in.
scatter to those. That's worked out better now. Um, but yeah, that was stressful that first year, kind of knowing trying to figure out the structure and the operations of the business and finding new clients and servicing the clients and figuring out how to do all the administrative stuff, the invoicing and the billing and the reporting and being the accounts receivable department. As a small business, usually you're all of those things.
Hmm. And
I get calls all the time from people like, "Hey, can are you interested in, janitorial services?" Or, "Hey, my company will take care of your office plants," or, "Hey, we can outsource your HR department."
where you got people like
Uh,
me coming in, hey man, let me take your payments.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Well, yeah, exactly. I got a lot of people like, "Hey, we can get you into this, we can get you $500,000 line of credit or something, that kind of thing." I don't. Yeah, and I try to be nice to folks because they're like me. They're doing their jobs, trying to get clients.
Absolutely,
Um,
brother,
but
absolutely.
some of them are like, some of them people will call me. I'm like, if you'd done like 2 minutes of research, you'd know what kind of company I was.
Yeah, yeah. I was
I
about to
get a
say
lot.
you could clearly go to your webpage and you have a 7 minute and 28 second long video of showing you your work.
Yeah, I know. I need to update that thing. That's from last.
Hey,
I need to update one.
it's still a
Yeah,
good
but it's funny because I used to have my last website. I redid my website a couple years ago, but the last version had a lot more work product on it and
yeah,
stuff. And my web guy said, people aren't gonna look at all that. I said, well, how about if I just do a little video that kind of summarizes my work? He said, that'll work.
that'll work.
So I like doing video
Because I tell
production.
you,
It's kind of it's
the
fun.
first thing I clicked on when I got on there was that video.
It was a video. There you go.
Absolutely,
There you go.
absolutely. But no, man, Mitch, I greatly appreciate you, and we appreciate having you and burn the ship.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.